It's another episode of This Week in Google Glass, and things are going to change, and we're going to get... And that's what it's all about. Jeffrey Powers here with Geekazine, Think Magazine, Put in a Geek, and this is technically the last episode of This Week in Google Glass. Hey everybody, Jeffrey Powers here from Geekazine, Think Magazine, Put in a Geek. You've got Geekazine. And as always, I have my cohort in crime for the last time here on TWIGG. Well, kind of, sort of. Mr. Luke Wallace, how you doing, Luke?
Hey, doing really good tonight, Jeff. Yeah, it's kind of a sad night, but
Sad, yeah.
not completely sad. I don't think this is going to be the ultimate finale.
Yeah. Where can people get a hold of you?
So you can find me on Twitter at Luke Luca, or on Google Plus at Luke Wallace, or on Ello at Luke Luca,
Or your email address? You can say
or
it.
Luke at twig.tv. That's TWIGG.tv.
The email address is not going to go away,
Correct.
just so you know. So, yeah, definitely. And of course, we got some big news, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes here. But first of all, we've got to get to our segment, which we call Big News, Little Arms.
Ah!
If dinosaurs had wearable technology, could you imagine that? They wouldn't. It wouldn't matter. It really wouldn't matter. So, anyway, let's start. Let's start over at TheVerge.com. Socks with wearables with sensors in them, and it's a company called Sensoria, and apparently they were on a Kickstarter and they got their funding, and then they got another $5 million funding for these socks. And what these socks are is they are the eyes into your feet. And of course, Jennifer being a massage therapist, you hear all the time. I hear all the time that your feet, being able to massage your feet, understand your feet, is kind of like the health center of your life. So Sensoria is going to take the initiative and make these socks with a removable clip. Basically, the sensors. I'm going to show you this picture here. It's got sensors with they got a little clip there that attach there, and these sensors then turn around and they record back to whatever device you have, and with that device they go and tell you what your feet are like. Lots of different things, not only like heart rate and stuff like that, but did you know a lot of us, and Jennifer's been talking about this, being more adamant about us walking heel to toe, because we put too much pressure on one part of our feet, and that can be bad. But if you can do a whole heel toe technique like that, you could actually be walking better, standing up straighter, and all that other good stuff. So a lot of data points that will be learned from here. In fact, they show one more picture here. I'll show this, where they're showing some of the heat map of your feet, and how you could be burning calories at the most, and keeping your heart rate at a good pace, and especially if you're doing a lot of running, being able to put that all together and be better at what you do if you want to be a runner, to learn how to run better and learn how to walk better or stand better for that matter. So pretty cool stuff. If you want to read more on that, we got that over at TheVerge.com. Luke?
Yeah, so one of the big problems with technology in general is batteries, right? Getting power. So Panasonic has just announced a new battery that is the most energy dense battery that they've come up with so far. So it's also one of the smallest batteries they've come up with. So it measures just 3.5 millimeters across and 20 inches, or 20, I'm sorry, 20 millimeters
20
long.
inches,
Yeah,
wow.
20 inches long. You're like, well, okay, that's really, really tiny. It's like a wire. But no, this one's 20 millimeters, so less than an inch long and 3.5 millimeters uh, across. So and it holds 13 milliamps of power in that little tiny space. And they're saying that this will come in handy for wearables in particular, just because it's so small. So wearables won't have to be as thick. They can be just 4 millimeters thick now, and still have a nice sized battery in there. So it should be good. Just a note, Panasonic makes or has partnered with Tesla to build batteries for them now. So hopefully, the same energy density that they're achieving in these small batteries will be scaled up for larger batteries, and they'll be able to, well, that means your car will be able to go farther, your phone will last longer, your wearable, whether that's glass or something else, will be able to last longer. So it's really, really exciting as far as battery technology goes.
All right, next up, can you imagine a vest that has sensors in it? Well, you can get a vest. Not only can you imagine it, you can also get the vest, and you can get it for a very good price. This is called the Hexaskin Biometric Shirt, and it's actually available now in the United States, and you can get it, and the price is pretty reasonable. It's only $400, and apparently this has got enough sensors in it to pretty much do whatever you need to do. It hooks up via Bluetooth, and basically, it really depends on what you want to do with it. I mean, you can write programs for your shirt to collect information. You can run through their apps and go for there. But they got over 400 sensors in the shirt. So, and actually, no, it says 4,000 sensors? I thought it was 400. They basically say that's only 1 cent per data point. So for $400, so it's pretty cool. It'll give you what you need, especially if you're wearing it for running and stuff like that. It's going to tell you your vitals easily, and that's pretty cool. That's over on crunchwear.com.
Also on Crunchware, we found another article about wearables for golfers.
Oh,
So what?
sorry, four. I was just
So, so if you're playing golf, you want to be able to navigate your way around. Find the pin. Find the hole to, for your golf ball and all that. So, who better to help you navigate a golf course than TomTom? So, TomTom has released a smartwatch called the TomTom Golfer that has information for more than 34,000 golf courses. So if you thought this was just for, all the big name, golf courses, all the famous ones, no, no, no. I'm guessing with 34,000, that covers a huge amount of the golf courses that are just, your average person might visit. So great information. It basically has GPS built into it, so it can keep track of where you are and give you immediate information on, distance to the next pin and what direction it is and all that good stuff. So very, very handy for golfers. Very specialized. It looks like it's launching for $325, which is not that much compared to a lot of other golf equipment. A good putter or a good driver might cost that much. So not a crazy amount, but there's a video on the website that we'll be linking to that will show you more about how it works, and looks really, really interesting.
We will. We will.
We will.
Okay.
I
All
don't think
right.
that's what you're showing right now,
No,
but
that's not what I'm showing right now.
yeah.
So I'm just checking something out before I get in here because I didn't see a price on this last one. Check this out. Finally, Nixie. Imagine you remember those slap bands that you used to get that you just take and slap it onto your wrist.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely. They
what
still
about
have those.
yeah, they
Those are back.
yeah, they do. They do. What about a slap band drone?
Awesome.
And it's a tiny bracelet that you slap on, and you open it up. It could become a small drone. Won't be able to do anything like like send Amazon packages or anything like that. But it'll just be a little fun little drone that you can fly around, and maybe it will have a small camera on it. I don't know. It's all brand new. The Nixie website, that's the name of it, Nixie, Nixie, will allow you to fly. It's probably not going to be completely accurate because it's not going to be solid, because you have to have the arms which have to collapse down around your wrist. But it's a great concept. And I was looking for a price on this. I don't think that they've got any information on that. It's all basically sign up for more information. I don't even know if they have a. Do you know if they have a crowdfund on this yet, or?
I don't think so. I think it was still in R&D. Basically, they're still developing it. But yeah, it looks like the idea is it has a camera in it, so that if you need to take a video or selfie or something of yourself while you're, out and about, you can have this little personal drone to fly off and take pictures and video of your, surroundings, and then I guess it comes back to you and lands back on your wrist, or you can grab it or whatever. So
It's like a hawk or something like that. Come back,
yeah,
little hawk,
yeah,
or
you hold
something.
your arm out and then it lands back on your wrist. Maybe I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, there you go, and that is big news, little arms. So, Luke, are you gonna be a dinosaur for Halloween this coming up?
I'm not. I'm not. I do have a costume, but I'm keeping it secret from all my coworkers. So I know a couple of them watch the show, so I got to keep it a little bit on the down low. But it's definitely coming together. Finished it up last weekend, so that was one thing I did on the break. So
Cool, cool. So, have you been doing anything with your Google Glass? I see you made a pizza with your Google
yeah,
Glass.
yeah. If people want to see how I make my homemade pizza, you should definitely check out my profile on Google Plus. So. Uh, Not something that I've done in a long time, but or not, not until recently did I start making homemade pizzas again, and it's been nice. Just kind of a nice little relaxing, half an hour. You kind of knock out a little pizza, and it's pretty good. You kind of customize it with your own toppings and such. So
I'll throw up a couple
pretty
pictures here in a
nice. Yeah.
second. Here, let's calling them up. Oh, yeah, these are all videos, aren't they?
Yeah, that's all video, so you can basically get a little my perspective on the video.
All right. Well, let's take a look at a little of this video here. So, there he is. He's making the pizza. You're putting some water into a cup, and then there's a video of you. Let's do the cheese video. So we'll
Yeah,
do that one.
cheesy. It's one
It
cheesy
ain't
video.
it ain't easy being cheesy. So there you are putting cheese onto your pizza.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now,
People might not realize that's how it works.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. You have to put tomato sauce on first,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then the
and I do
cheese,
have that video.
and then the
So
cheese. So, and that's just a sneak peek on how you make pizza. Now we make since Jennifer's gluten free, we made gluten free pizza before. There was one that was really interesting, and the crust was very uh, fluffalish, I guess you could say.
hmm.
But it was really good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, uh, I'm surprised how many things that we've made that's been gluten free that has actually been really good. I mean, she makes these banana muffins that are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then what else? Well, there's a lot of the smoothies, and I'm finding a lot of things. Even from watching that South Park episode a couple weeks ago, that even soy sauce has gluten in it and everything like that. So
Hmm.
taking a lot of that stuff out there. So, but have you ever gone gluten free at all?
Never on purpose. I've probably had meals that had no gluten in them, but yeah, not a no. No, I haven't tried that to see if it made any difference to me at all. See if I had
Okay.
any sort of sensitivity to it. So.
Okay. Well, neither. I mean, I've gone a few days without that, but you
Mhm.
definitely not more. Last week in Vegas, sure, yeah, I was eating left and right. So,
Yeah,
although I
yeah.
didn't eat as much, I didn't. The thing about going to conferences is they lay out food all the time,
Mhm.
and the two things you want to do. First of all, you want to stock up for your room because if you go into that mini fridge, a can of soda is $6 in itself.
Yeah.
So you stock up on soda and snacks, for like 10 o'clock after I get done video, I'm going like, and I want something to kind of give me that extra edge so I can go down and play some slots and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's the conferences they can take a lot out of you, and then you just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat, and it's crazy. So, but
Yeah.
but
Speaking of
anyway,
conferences and food, that reminds me, I did want to give a shout out for the Big Android Barbecue that's going to be here in the Dallas area next weekend. So just a few days away on Friday and Saturday of this week. We'll be having the Big Android Barbecue, and I will not be speaking this year. I have spoken in years past. taking a little break. I didn't really think of a good topic until it was like after the call for speakers, but there will be some Googlers there, and including Timothy Jordan, who is the head developer advocate for Android Wear these days. So,
Hmm. Okay.
so I'll be talking with him and maybe able to get a little video and get his opinion on on where Android Wear is going if we
Cool.
don't hear news before then.
Cool. Cool. So, and then last week, this last week, I've been pretty busy, um, and I was in Vegas. If you didn't catch that, and I bought myself my first ever GoPro, the Hero 4. So this is it does 4K resolution, 30 frames a second. It also does 1080 at 120 frames per second, so I can do some slow motion. However, it heats up. So there's times I've been doing video and you want to capture that moment at 120 frames a second, and all of a sudden it errors out, and
Mm.
I've not been happy about it. I'm getting this an older micro card because I had one micro card, it's just a name brand micro card, which I put in here, but I just ordered a 64 gigabyte uh, micro SD card to put in here, and hopefully that'll make a difference in not heat up as much. But I'm definitely not too keen on the performance right now. And I have a full review over at geekazine.com. But it's been a fun week. But the one thing I did not do this last week in Vegas was I did not wear these. In fact, they sat on this hook. I have a hook over here, which I put my Google Glass on, uncharged, anything. And it's kind of that's where we're going to head here. It's a little bit sad, and Luke, show everybody your sad face. So here's what's happening here, and I've always said I'm not a big fan of those articles that say that Google Glass is dead, because the reality is Google Glass is not going to be dead. It might take a new form. It might do anything right now, but in the last 4 weeks, the amount of news that has come out for Google Glass has been less than minimal. In fact, if you noticed, there wasn't a single Google Glass article today in this episode so far. And the reason why, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it might just be the fact that we're all kind of over the Google Glass. It might be the fact that Google's getting ready to gear up for something new when it got a new stage to Google Glass, um, or whatnot. But then last week, one of our favorite writers, the curmudgeon himself, Mr. John C. Dvorak, wrote this article right here, and it was called. Let me pull it up here. It was called "Rest in Peace, Google Glass, 2012 to 2014." Now, I take John Dvorak's stuff with pretty much a grain of salt half the time. He gets paid to be the sarcastic curmudgeon that he is, but he did say a few things that made me think about it, and he did point out some stuff that we thought would actually take off, but in all reality didn't. Like for instance, the VCR Plus option, where you punched in a number, and TV Guides had it, where you punched in a number and that would record your TV show, or set your VCR for the TV show. The other one was what was it? AOL, keyword employed by AOL. We thought was going to go somewhere. It didn't go somewhere. So when Google Glass, he's thinking, Google Glass is going to be the same way. And I'll tell you one thing that I totally agree with the Dvorak on, and that is the fact that this is going to go away. And this will probably go away in the next 365 days. Why will it go away? Well, many different reasons why. One is it's not foldable. You want a pair of glasses that folds. This becomes a big problem when you're trying to do anything. The other thing is just all the failures that technically Google Glass has. If you've watched the show, This is not the first pair of Google Glass that I've had. I've broken, well, 5 pairs of Google Glass simply because of sweating on them. So the design, there's some engineering issues that need to be out. And I don't know if you know this. Most of you Google Glassers don't know this or don't seem to care about this part. But you, Google's saying now you don't take this out in a rainstorm. If this gets rained on, it could die. This is not waterproof by any means. You can't stick it into a tub of water for 30 minutes like you would some other devices. And the design is horrible, and the regular consumer will not wear it. In fact, the first thing, if you get up on my Twitter feed and you join me on Twitter, the first thing I ask is, what price point would you buy a pair of Google Glass? I can't tell you how many people said that they just wouldn't buy a pair of Google Glass because of the way it is right now. Does that mean that Google Glass is not going to come back, going to be something? No, it will be something. It just won't be that. It'll be a pair of glasses. I mean, Luke, how many hours in a day do you, because you have the frames, how
Yeah.
many hours in a day do you wear your Google Glass?
Uh, it depends on how much I'm sitting at my desk at work. Because when I'm sitting at a computer, I don't usually wear any glasses, even
Hmm.
if they weren't Google glasses. I usually take them off just because my eyes
Yeah.
need that rest. But I will wear them 8, 10, 12. It really just depends. I basically wear them from when I leave the house in the morning to when I get home in the evening. Once I'm at home, I will say, I do agree that this form factor isn't perfect, much like any new technology. I mean, after some time, but for me, wearing them at home, the battery pack in the back sticks out too much on my head, and maybe that's a problem with my head. I don't know. I
No,
assume that
I
my
don't
head
think
is
so.
okay because I've never had this problem before, but it sticks out too much that if I lean back in a recliner, it kind of pushes on them, and then it's kind of messes it up a little bit, and so I usually take them off once I'm at home because I'm going to be sitting at home. I'll have my phone or my tablet or something
Yeah.
near me, and my laptop. So it's like I don't really need them on anyway. Um, so,
So do you say?
but I do wear them all during the day. So I
Yeah.
would say 8, 10, 12 hours a day.
So do you say that you wear them because of work, or do you wear them because you want to wear them?
I wear them because I want to wear them.
Okay.
There's a few motivations behind that, I guess, but um, I will say I can agree with a couple of things in the article. Again, not everything, and I'll maybe get to those points in a minute. But if we're talking about things we agree with, um, he said that there were some people that they don't wear them anymore because they're um, well, he says they stopped wearing them because they were useless and led to personal ridicule. So I'll agree that they are not as useful as they could be. Um, Especially compared to the Android Wear devices, where the notifications are much more plentiful of what's getting passed to the Android Wear devices. So things like my company email and calendar events, those aren't passed to Glass. So in that sense, Glass is useless for those applications because it doesn't show me that information at all, which is actually very useful information. Most of my day these days, it seems like, is spent jumping between meetings and answering and dealing with email.
Okay.
So not having that access does make them a lot less useful than they will be once they have Android Wear integration or once it becomes an Android Wear device. So
Yeah, and that might be the thing. I mean, we're seeing not only from Google's end, but we're also seeing from the developers end the slowdown of applications and putting things forward. I mean, there's still third-party apps, but it's really about where Android Wear is going to go, and that's a big gap right there. Because if they abandon what they're doing right now with this card system, which I can kind of not see that happening, and that would make it tougher to do anything. But if they abandon what they're doing now for Android Wear, then some people are going to have to do some relearning, right?
yeah, Yeah, there's definitely some differences between how Android Wear works and how Google Glass works. Um, it's subtle, but it's significant.
Hmm.
So you can't, they end up looking very similar in the end. So it may not look obvious to people, but the back end on it, it definitely there are fundamental differences about how it's working. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited for them to release a new version of Android Wear. I think we've talked about that rumor before, and I would guess that it's weeks away, based on the Android L stuff, because we've seen it maybe being tied to that. I would hope that it's no further than that, but I agree that like this form factor is, in my mind, kind of on its last legs. Something's got to change here. It's been two
Yeah.
years since they showed off this form factor, and 2 years ago it was very cool. But like anything in technology, after a couple of years, people start saying, "Well, couldn't that be smaller? Couldn't it be faster? Couldn't it be, couldn't it be better at this point? Or
Yeah.
couldn't it be, couldn't they incorporate some of the stuff that we want,
Yeah.
or whatever?" And so I think it's time for them to in the Explorer program and come out with either something new or say, what, we're not going to do glass, we're not going to do the GDK. It was a nice idea. We're just not seeing long-term benefits to it, but we're
Yeah.
putting all our money into Android Wear, and that wouldn't surprise me a whole lot,
No.
just
No.
because if you look at Android Wear, we've already had like so this is a Moto 360, right? So this is the third or the third big Android Wear device, and there's already more announced that are all going to be following this Android Wear platform, and they're made by different manufacturers. They have slightly different features. I'm excited about the Sony sports watch or smartwatch or whatever they're calling it, which has built-in GPS and storage for music, so you can
Okay.
actually go running with it
Yeah.
and stuff. And so, like, we're already seeing the Android Wear platform getting a lot of attention, a lot of enhancement. And so it just feels like Glass is not getting that, because where's the offline GPS version of Glass? Where's the
Yeah.
offline music version of Glass? Like, you're
Yeah.
not seeing it.
Well, you also got to understand, or you also got to think about it in the long term. Android Wear, if you take Google Glass and import it into Android Wear, then you have a platform for wearable headsets,
Yeah.
which you could then say, okay, Sony, okay, Samsung, okay, LG, here's the Android Wear. All you have to do is do your third party OEM tweaks to it, and you've got a basis, you've got a framework around that to begin with. So it would make more sense to have Google Glass turn into Android Wear, because then you could make just like the Android phone, you have an LG version, you have a I'm testing the new Moto X Bamboo, which I showed you a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
You got Sony's version of Android. You've got there's just so many different versions, and maybe the Google Glass will become the Nexus Glass, and with Android Wear and more foldable and more usable. Maybe instead of maybe out of everything an eyepiece, the optics where it just unplugs. So if you do drive or if you do go to a theater, you just unplug it from the glass. You still wear the battery, and you put that main computer piece into a little bag in your pocket or something like that, and then go from there. That because that's the other factor that's involved in Google Glass, and that is if you wear them with frames like yours, Luke, and you take them out and you forget your other pair of glasses, you get stopped by. Right now, that's not a big deal, but maybe in the coming months they'll set out a law where no Google Glass is allowed. You forget your Google Glass, and all of a sudden you're driving, cop stops you, gives you a ticket.
Yeah.
So if there's so many factors on it, but I really think the biggest one is the is just switching it over to the operating system, where you can then turn around and say, here's a OEM version. You could put it onto your Raspberry Pi made glass system, but it's still going to be our operating system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, oh, I thought you were going to say something there.
Well, so now to be fair on that, Google is playing the Android Wear uh, OEM platform a lot differently than they've played the Android one. So with Android Wear, Google still maintains all of the updates. So the manufacturers can add on stuff to it, but they can't change the underlying OS that rolls out with it. So OS updates basically for all the Android Wear devices, at least to this point, are still managed by Google, and they can roll out that kind of stuff themselves. Now, you talk about firmware of like, the software that runs the memory and the CPU and stuff. The manufacturers still control that, and that's the
Yeah.
update we saw with like the Moto 360 that increased battery life and did that. It was kind of a firmware update as opposed to a OS update.
Yeah.
But the OS updates are all handled by Google, and so that means that you don't have this whole, well, this watch doesn't get the updates, so do I buy this watch, and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be, yep, if you've got Android Wear, you will be running the latest version of Android Wear, and you don't have to worry about getting
Exactly.
left behind because, oh, I bought the LG one, and oh, that's the one that never got updated, kind of a thing. So
Yeah. And the best part is you can get into enterprise a lot easier with a more flexible system like that because we talk about warehouses using it instead of RF guns, or a hotel uses it to check guests in, or an airline uses it to find what gate people need to go to, whatever. If they have a or if they have an Android Wear based framework and then their own apps running on top of it, including security apps and everything else, they can do what their glass needs to do instead of having a general pair of Google Glass or Android Glass or whatever they're going to call it, because they're not going to call it Google Glass in the next year. I'm pretty sure on that. It's going to be like Android Wear Glass, or
yeah,
something like that. But the whole point is that their pair will basically have a password in it, and if you know the password, you'll get in, and all you won't be able to surf the web. All you'll see is information about that company, and that's it. And with of course restrictions on whatever the level the employee can see and stuff like that. Just no different than a warehouse database system, and they're just wearing it on their heads. And I think that's where they're going with it. And it's going to be, and once again, that it'll move into business, and business will be happy with it. But then in a couple of years, they're not going to like this design any more than I'm starting to not care too much for this design. And that's where it's really going to start to flourish into something new, and that's where it's going to get really cool. But right now, um, I don't see a version 4 of this pair of Google Glass. That's the bottom line.
yeah,
Do you agree?
yeah. I don't see why they would release um, another version with the same form factor. It seems
Yep.
like it's really time for them to, maybe they're thinking, oh, well, but we can make it faster if we keep it the same form factor. It's like, I think people would say, keep it the same, but if you can make it smaller and look better and last longer, all that kind of stuff, and fix the software side of it, or adjust the software side of it to be more in line with the stuff they're working on actively. People would be happier with that than to say, well, I'd rather it, like, because the speed isn't nearly as big of an issue. But
Yeah.
I did want to talk about a couple of things that he said he thinks are the reasons that it's going to go away. So we've been outlining what our reasons are, but he raised a couple other points that I completely disagree with.
Okay.
Um, he in a paragraph, a few down, it says the social pressure came directly from the public. People found these devices insulting and rude. And I would completely disagree. I never ran into people that said it was insulting and rude. Maybe they were thinking that.
Well,
I suppose that's possible.
you got to
But
remember, he's in the San Francisco area,
and that's
and
the issue
yeah,
is he's got a very different perspective than the general population.
exactly.
And so he's looking at it, and I wonder if he actually had those firsthand experiences because he described a lot of experiences that I saw other people talk about, but I never saw him say, someone came up to me and told me I was rude for wearing it. I think he was so uncomfortable wearing it for whatever reason that uh, he just projected that onto people of like, well, I'm not going to wear it because I feel so awkward wearing it, and I bet other people think that I'm rude for wearing it. And he talked about how the the users would have found out when they hear complaints from people on the street, or worse, the ultra expensive glass was grabbed off their face. Again, two things that never happened to me with hundreds of interactions, including one as late as last week. Somebody in my building was like, "Is that Google Glass?" Like, yep, yep. And I had the same conversation where they're like, "That's amazing. I've never seen it before." And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Do you wear it?" I'm like, "Yes." And do you like it? Yes. And what do you use it for? Texting and email and taking pictures. Oh, wow, that sounds really neat. Okay, well, the elevator's done now. Okay, bye. That
Yeah,
kind of thing. And literally, I had that interaction like 3 times last week, and it was just people saying, "That's amazing. I can't wait to have something like that." So for
yeah,
him to say everyone hates it and they assault these people that wear it, it's like, I think you're in some sort of anti-glass bubble somewhere, that it may be true there, but it is not true in general. And then he says, there was nothing confidential or personal that could be discussed with anyone wearing the device. Well, I have a unique perspective on that one too, because I go to work each day, and I work at a high profile mobile development shop, and I sit in lots of meetings with lots of um, like with clients, and I'm on phone calls, and people know I'm wearing them, and they're discussing very sensitive things, and no one has ever said, "Are you recording this conversation?" Sometimes they make a joke of like, "Well, hey,
yeah.
Luke recorded this whole thing." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." Like, one, the battery doesn't handle that. Two, this isn't that interesting. I mean, it's all
Exactly.
it's
Yeah,
all good, but it's like, I don't need a 30-minute record of that meeting. I need the meeting notes. I don't want the long version.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think he has this really weird perspective that no one trusts it, and it's like, yeah, people like to make a joke about, "Oh, look, he's recording us," and it's like, yes, I'm recording you and sending it directly to Google right now. Yes, it's like, no, no, there's no way, there's just absolutely no way that I could be doing that. So
The best thing that it could do is it could kind of turn itself on and record where it's going. Can't take it. It's not supposed to take a picture. I suppose somebody could hack into it and take pictures. I mean, we just had this news article where Snapchat, some hacker hacked into Snapchat, which was supposed to be all deleted pictures, and they have a whole database of pictures. So it's very possible that down the line we're going to see somebody that's found a way to hack into your phone to begin with, because they have to hack into your phone.
yeah,
Well, I suppose they could go through the Wi-Fi, but they have to find a way to get into your glass to turn
yeah,
the camera on. And if they turn the camera on, the first person that's going to see that, unless you have it hanging on a post like I do right now, is you,
yeah,
because that viewfinder is going to then turn on, and you're going to see it. And it's like, what the heck's going on? You just press the button, turn it off, or whatever,
yeah,
and go from there. So as for Dvorak, I have not seen John Dvorak wear a pair of Google Glass. I don't see any pictures online of John Dvorak wearing a pair of glass. I don't know if he's even given Google Glass 24 hours to wear. I would
yeah,
guess, as a tech reporter, that he's at least given it 24 to 48 hours of testing to make any type of decision than that. But out of everybody, even though he's not the best authority when it comes to Google Glass, he is a listened to face when it comes to tech out there. And
yeah,
if he's saying that it's done, I'm not saying that he's right by any means, but there is some truth to it. I mean, he's not going to write a fluff article to get traffic to his site, because he writes articles and people come to the site for him anyway. He doesn't need to write those. Like going back to Snapchat today, I was really flustered with the fact that there were some articles out there that were talking about the Snapchat cat, and they were using Jennifer Lawrence's picture as the featured image. And it's
yeah,
like, you're just doing that to pop the article so people will come to your website. Dvorak doesn't need to do those little tactics to come to the website. And if he writes something, he's truly, I believe he believes that that's it for Google Glass. I I'm with him on that, on the fact that's that's it for this stage of Google Glass,
yeah,
and that's it.
yeah.
But glasses will, and like I said before, glasses will have that in there. They won't look like Google Glass, but they'll have that functionality.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely it would definitely be a good time to uh, move on to the next thing or move on to the next iteration. Um, but I think we're seeing with like these smart watches, and I mean, if you're saying, you know, wearables are going away, it's like, well, look at Apple, they just announced one, and people
Yeah.
are already excited about it, and it's not even coming out at least for 3 more months.
No,
And
I think it's 6 months, and they haven't really set a date on it yet.
no, they just said early.
Yeah,
Early 2015. It's like, well, what's early? It's like, well, before July, like,
yeah.
okay,
Anything before June. I was going to say June, but anything before June
yeah,
and July is early. And they also said that Google Glass was supposed to be out by now,
yeah,
by the
yeah,
beginning of this year. And look at it's not, and that's
yeah.
not a good sign on the track record either.
No, no, no. Yeah, it's very hard to do things and stick to timelines when they're this big and they're this complicated. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, it's like it's definitely not going away. I think maybe it's too soon. Maybe I think the watches are a great stepping stone
yeah.
to having another device that helps see your notifications, that helps you interact with all the simple stuff. Um, but a I don't think that a heads up display is outside the realm of possibility or acceptance. I think it just is going to take a little bit more time, and I think if they had dropped the price on glass as well, if they dropped it down to $300 a year ago, they probably would have taken off like crazy. The other issue is this thing is just so expensive. People are just like, it is not worth it. And I've
Yeah,
told people as much. I'm like, I don't see how it's worth it at its current price point now, just
yeah.
because it's been out as long as it has. The hardware's gotten so cheap. Like it's just I don't see how it's worth the money today. Was it worth it 2 years ago? Oh, sure.
Actually, no. I mean, we paid $1,500 for technology that was already 2 years old, a processor that was 2 years old, a battery that was not top of the line. I mean, we could have paid $700 for that glass, but price aside from that, it's more about the ability to if people want it or not. And you're right. If they would have made a smaller version of Google Glass, maybe even a pair of Google, and this is kind of spitballing it, but maybe a pair of Google Glass that actually didn't have a camera or optics.
Hmm.
And we talked. There was an article we talked about 6 months back that said they shouldn't have put a camera on it. But what if they would have made a pair of Google Glass that didn't have the camera or optics, that was just meant as a Bluetooth device, to use just like any other Bluetooth device to get people interested, and then that becomes a $80 to $100 item, which people wear on the side of their glass, hook on the side of their glasses. I use the
Hmm.
bone conductivity and stuff like that. Would it have changed the way that people thought about Google Glass at that point because there's no optics on that? Possibly.
Yeah, yeah. I would say the other issue I have, and I say this all the time, is Google is not a marketing company. They are not real good at selling their technology. Um, they do some amazing things. I am blown away constantly
Yeah,
by stuff they're doing. But
agreed.
I'm an engineer, and I'm looking at it from a tech perspective of like must have been so complicated to build, but they do a horrible job of explaining it to the average person, and so the average person is like, what? I
Yeah.
never even heard about this thing. And you're like, but it's amazing. And it's this amazing engineering that went on. They have very, very smart people, but they do not get the word out very well. And so I think that also hurts them in something like Glass, where they're doing something very different than people are expecting.
Yeah.
And so they weren't good at marketing it and explaining why it was good and why it wasn't scary. And then like the whole like dropping the price might be one way of adjusting that and adjusting perception and stuff. And there's a lot of stuff they could have done, but I feel like the marketing was never really all in on making it successful. And so we're
Marketing,
just seeing the repercussions.
yeah, marketing and support. I'll tell you something. Since the inception of This Week in Google Glass, I had somewhere around 20 opportunities to talk with people at Google, and a couple opportunities where I talked with some people that dealt towards Google Glass. And every time I've tried to approach them and ask, hey, we would like to have somebody from Google come on, and explain some of this stuff from Google Glass, and I think that would make the customers more open to buying it if they're actually hearing things from the horse's mouths. And out of those, all 20 times, I have been declined. One,
Yeah.
because I'm not a major news source. I mean, and two, because I and they do this with everything. I mean, they do this with YouTube. They do this with Google search. It's like it's almost like pulling teeth. And if they would have had somebody come on the show maybe once every 6 weeks or something like that and talk about Google Glass, it might have revitalized and kept things going a little bit further. But it didn't, and because they didn't. And I don't know if it's because of the fact that I don't live in San Francisco and I don't get to go to their campus or anything like that. But the closest thing I've ever had to, well, I have had one Google employee, or actually two Google employees on the show, and that's when I went to South by Southwest and did that little compilation back in March, and which you can see up on the YouTube channel. And that's the only time that I've had any acknowledgement that This Week in Google Glass was part of the Google Glass family. Otherwise, it's just a whole bunch of people buying a $1,500 pair of glasses and then going off on their distance and taking pictures of making pizzas and stuff like that.
Those people.
Those people.
Yeah. So,
Anyway, so, you like the sound
yeah.
effects, by the way?
Yeah, it's great. I do think that you would see that with lots of other companies. I would agree that I have seen lots of other groups, lots of other companies put a lot of um, time into making sure the messages is gotten out through any available means. They would have somebody that they could say, "Yeah, we'll be on your show," or "We'll
Mm-hmm.
record an interview with you." And like, "Oh, we can't do it on Monday nights at that time for whatever reason. I have a family. I can't do it that time, whatever." But they would say, "Oh yeah, let's record a video sometime during the day
Yep.
and do an interview and just talk to somebody, and they'll really help promote it." And so I think that's one thing. If we as we expand into more wearables, I think that some of these other wearable companies really have the opportunity to come on the show and promote what makes theirs different. Get
Yep.
some people excited about theirs, because that's the other thing is it's a very diverse market. It's not just one model of Google Glass like that we've had to discuss for the past year. Like there's tons of different wearables, and they all like you can find the one that really works for you. We talked about the fancy shirt tonight. Well, like I said, that it's probably not for me, because I have enough stuff to work on that I don't
Yeah.
need a shirt to help fine tune my body. I can just if I just work out on anything, that'll be an improvement. And so I don't need something to that level yet, let's
Yeah.
say. But there are things that maybe that I would be excited about that are just more general data
Exactly.
tracking and stuff. And so but that's what's great. There's a ton of stuff out there, so I'm not limited in saying, well, do I want Google Glass or do I not? Because that's the only option I have. It'd be great if there were more options. So hopefully we'll see some.
Yeah. As you're kind of letting the cat out of the bag, this is where we're going. I mean, I'd love to be able to continue this on as This Week in Google Glass, but the writing is on the wall. For the last month and a half, Luke and I have had a very big struggle. And I know there's been a couple times that Luke's been kind of a little bit upset because we didn't get to do a show. But the reality was the news wasn't there. And we got lucky. We had a couple interviews come in, and so we had stuff out there. And we could find other people to interview on their stuff. But usually anybody that's made a Google Glass app has made an app and moved on as quick as possible. They're not they don't see it as a business because once again, maybe about 75,000 pairs of, maybe 100,000 now pairs of Google Glass out there,
Yeah.
which is a good number. But out of that 100,000 pairs, how many people are using it and using it by putting apps onto their glass?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is not much. In fact,
And
I'll
there's no
show.
paid apps.
There's no paid
And you
apps.
can't show ads. Like Google's policy says no ads in Glass. So
Yeah,
the revenue would all have to come through some other means. It couldn't be you could sell a Glass app for $10 and
yeah.
make your money back.
And then they had the whole, we're taking the We're taking the Hangout option off of it. So and there were like 5 apps that I was dealing with that once that option got taken off, their apps were pretty much defunct. They couldn't do anything. And their business models pretty much shriveled up and died. I talked to a company, it was like 2 weeks ago, who has actually they moved on. They're actually making Android apps now. They said we're not even going to touch Google Glass. It's not worth it anymore. So, and now that sounds bad and everything, but the reality is that's what it's going. And I'm going to show you. I'll show you right now. This is where I normally go for news. This is the Reddit subboard for Google Glass. And if you go on reddit.com/r/Google Glass, you've got nothing. Well, let's see. We've got augmented reality virtual pinboard. We could have talked about that. And then everything was I want to sell my Google Glass. I want to trade my Google Glass. And then questions like, do custom frames still hug your head? And then stuff that we've seen 2 weeks ago, still up there. And I go to the Google Plus board, and there's which is Glass Explorers, and there's really no news. I mean, it's been that board's been kind of fluff where people show their pictures and videos anyway. So there wasn't too much news coming from there. But we couldn't put together we couldn't even put together an episode today until we decided to switch on that. So that is why you saw this right here. This is the new name to This Week in Google Glass. Now, if you go to This Week in Google Glass, I've actually changed the website too, and put a new look to it, and it says Wearable Today. It's still, if you still go to thisweekingoogleglass.com or twig.tv, you still get here. And technically, thisweekingoogleglass.com will be the primary domain for the next 4 weeks as everything switches over. But eventually, if you go to wearabletoday.com, you go to wearabletoday.com, it'll show up here. It'll do exactly the same thing. But in 4 weeks, the domain will actually switch primary domains, and wearabletoday.com will be the main one. And the reason why is we've got to, in order for this show to move forward, we need to have news and information and people willing to come onto the show to talk about their wares. And it also means we got to expand a little bit. We've got to find somebody that's a little bit more well versed in wearable technology, sensors, and technology that way. Luke works on apps. I talk with the general population, well, in startups about their products. But it would be great to have somebody with a good working knowledge on wearable technology to kind of maybe explain something that needs to be explained, or be able to direct us in the right spot, so we know, and so we understand what's going to happen with a piece of technology in 2 years. Because that's whenever I see like this GoPro Hero, who would have guessed that they would be filming in 4K in 2 years? But on the other hand, with the GoPro Hero, I can't record more than 20 seconds without this thing overheating and killing out the SD card. So we wouldn't have thought of that 2 years ago either. But it's something to think about, and directions that need to go, and that's where we need to go. We need to think of, in 2016, will we still have a show? And with This Week in Google Glass, I don't think we will. I just don't think the name Google Glass will still be around, just will not be
The
Google Glass.
concept.
The concept. It just won't be
Yeah.
Google Glass, and that's why Wearable Today was. We went through. Yeah, I mean, we went through a lot of domain names, right, Luke?
Oh yeah, yeah. We try to put some thought into, what's going to make sense, and we even tried to plan out what is the next name for something like that going to be, for
Yeah.
your body technology, things like that. But wearable seems to at least be the name du jour of that kind of personal technology, and personal tech, body tech. Communicator, like I think of my phone now, like eventually we're going to start calling them communicators, because the
Yeah.
phone is becoming so deprioritized. So I'm trying to get that to take off, but phone is still a much shorter word, and
Yeah.
calling it your comm isn't isn't quite there yet. So I got to work on that trend. But again, it's like, well, we're more trying to focus on the stuff around that, the brain of your phone or your tablet. So
Yeah, and really a phone is just as much of a wearable computer as your clothing, as your watch, as your Google Glasses, because it's on your person. There are apps where you can now, it will now, even with an older iPhone, uses the light somehow to look at your finger and figure out your heartbeat. So there is, and then of course they've got the iPhone 5, 5S, the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus all have biometric sensors in it. This laptop that's sitting right here, this HP EliteBook 1080 or 1040, excuse me, has a biometric fingerprint that does more than just unlock apps. It can open up programs if I wanted to. So is this also considered wearable technology? Because I'll have it on my person at some given time in the day. So that's where we're kind of going with it. We don't want to go too far away from it, and Google Glass will still be our main focus. It's just that right now we need to figure out on an overall where things are gonna go in 2 years. And I just want to talk to Luke 2 years from now instead of saying, hey, you remember we used to do this show about this and that and the other thing?
yeah, good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
So
Is This Week in Google Glass filmed in front of a live studio audience, or is that a laugh track? Laugh track, yeah,
yeah.
because that wasn't funny.
Well, that sound means that it's time to wrap up this show. I just made that up, so
Oh, that's good. I like that.
thank you, thank you. There's limited sound effects in Google Hangouts, and hey, Google Hangouts, a great way to get a show across, and one of the things that they've been working on month after month to make it even better. I mean, even with these sound effects, and they changed up the codecs and stuff like that, so it looks better. This time last year, I was dead set against using Google Hangouts, but then they made the HD upgrade, and it was just like night and day. Yeah, let's start using it now. So and go from there. So, but anyway, so this is what's happening right now. This is the new logo, Wearable Today. If you go over to the website, as you can see, it's Wearable Today. I'm looking to get a good design logo. So if you want to help out, let me know. Jeff at twig.tv. And you'll definitely be Jeff at wearabletoday.com and Luke at wearabletoday.com. I just got to take the time to actually set up those email addresses and forward them off. So, but the whole point is that you'll still be able to use twig.tv. That's not going to go away anytime soon. You'll still be able to use This Week in Google Glass. It's not going away anytime soon. We're going to still focus on Google Glass with a minor in wearable technology. So hopefully that'll keep you going. And if you want to come onto your show and promote your Google Glass app, your Google Glass accessory, if you're part of Google and you want to talk about Google Glass and really get into the social media game, we're here. We're open for you to come over and do that. And I hope that you take that seriously and come on the show and be part of our community and go from there. So, Luke, any last thoughts?
No, I'm excited for the future. I think it'll be great to talk about wearables today, and it's
Wearable
just
Today.
yeah, wearable today. Your wearable today, your today wearable. Yeah, we'll have to work out how we introduce the show now. I'm going to be so used to saying This Week in Google Glass that I may flub it a little bit, but
Yeah, we
I'm
got to figure out a
excited.
tagline too. So
Yeah, and we got to you know yeah, we'll have to work on some taglines and some branding. Yeah, that logo could probably use a little bit of work, but
it
we'll
was
have
all
to.
last minute. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to get some designers on that or something. So
yeah. Let's get the team together, rally the team, and go from there. Where can people find you, Luke?
you can find me on Google Plus at Luke Wallace, and then you can find me on Twitter at Luke Luca or Luke at twig.tv.
And of course, your little enterprise. How are
Oh
your
yeah, yeah. So I am also the owner and founder of biglettershirt.com. If you need a shirt with big letters on it, or a single big letter per shirt, just check out biglettershirt.com.
There you go. All right. Well, that does it for this episode of This Week in Google Glass. Technically, no, not really technically the last episode. Is as the merge comes over, you're still going to see some of the logos, some of the images, as I figure out how we're going to move this show forward a little bit more, and hopefully get you guys involved. I know we had some people very interested in the Q&A area. For some reason, the Q&A area did not load up this time, so I don't know if anybody did have questions or anything like that. We'll definitely be back next week, and we'll review all the. Feel free to send us questions, comments, or whatever. If you want to be part of the show, let us know, and we'll work with that and go from there. And then, of course, we've got some scheduling stuff coming up, but we're going to be around for the next couple weeks. Actually, we'll be back next week, and we might need a week off from there or something like. We'll figure it all out as we go from there. So, Luke, thank you very much for being on the show once again, and thank you for making 53. Actually, you made 52 episodes of This Week in Google Glass. Thank you very much for being part of that.
Absolutely. No problem. It's been a blast so far. And like I said, it's just the beginning of the next chapter, really.
Exactly. So, thanks a lot for watching, you guys, and those of you who have emailed me, and Luke, who have commented and asked questions and stuff. We appreciate that. There, thank you very much. But we'll be back next week, and we'll see you next week. The last time I'm going to do this week in Google Glass, now called Wearable Today. You guys take care and geek out.